Ethan Kross was not just a billionaire. He was a man whose name carried weight in boardrooms, media headlines, and political corridors across America. At 37, he had built an empire from nothing: technology, real estate, private equity. Money obeyed him, people admired him, power followed him everywhere. Yet, despite the women, the parties, the invitations that never stopped coming, Ethan felt nothing lasting. Every relationship ended the same way: interest without depth, attraction without meaning. He had dated models, executives, influencers. None of them stayed in his thoughts after the lights went out. Love, he believed, was a performance people perfected when they wanted something. That belief shattered on a quiet night in Boston. Ethan had flown in for a charity gala, one more obligation on an endless calendar. The event was elegant but predictable. Smiles that meant nothing. Conversations rehearsed 1,000 times. By midnight, he stepped outside, needing air more than applause. That's when he saw her. She wasn't dressed to impress. No loud jewelry. No forced confidence. She stood near the steps of the old library across the street, holding a book instead of a phone, waiting for a ride share that was clearly late. Her name, he would later learn, was Lily Hart. She was a graduate student in literature, raised in a small town, independent, grounded, untouched by the world Ethan lived in. Their conversation began by accident: a simple comment about the cold, a shared laugh about Boston weather, a discussion about the book she held. There was no flirting, no agenda, just honesty. For the first time in years, Ethan didn't feel like a billionaire. He felt like a man listened to, challenged, seen. They walked, they talked. Hours passed unnoticed. That night, something rare happened between two adults who didn't plan anything and expected nothing. It wasn't wild, it wasn't careless, it was quiet, respectful, deeply emotional, an encounter built on trust, not impulse. By morning, Lily was gone. No last name, no number, no social media exchange, only a handwritten note left on the hotel desk. Some connections are meant to remind us who we are, not to stay forever. Ethan stared at the note for a long time. For the first time in his life, he wanted more: not possession, not control, but commitment. Days passed, then weeks. Nothing felt the same. Meetings blurred, deals lost their excitement. Every face reminded him of the one he couldn't find. When his closest friend joked, "Just find another woman," Ethan surprised himself with his response, "I won't marry anyone unless it's her." That was the moment the search began. Not with private investigators, not with money, but with patience, regret, and a question that haunted him every night. What if the one person who mattered most walked away because he didn't ask her to stay? Lily Hart didn't disappear because she didn't care. She disappeared because caring scared her more than loneliness ever had. After that night, she returned to her small apartment on the quieter side of Boston, carrying a weight she had never known before. The city felt louder. The streets felt unfamiliar, and her heart, steady for years, beat with a question she refused to ask out loud. Who was he, really? She knew he was successful. She knew he lived a life far beyond hers. But she hadn't asked for details, and he hadn't offered. That night was never about status or future promises. It was about presence, about two adults meeting without masks. Lily had grown up in a world where promises were fragile. Her father had died when she was 16, leaving behind more debts than memories. Her mother worked double shifts to keep them afloat. Lily learned early that security didn't come from people, it came from self-respect, education, and boundaries. She had watched her friends chase relationships that glittered on the surface and collapsed underneath. Men who said the right things, futures that looked perfect online and empty in real life. So when she felt something real with Ethan, something deep and dangerous, she chose distance, not because she thought she wasn't worthy, but because she knew exactly how much she was worth. She returned to her routine: classes, research papers, late nights at the university library, where she worked part-time. She buried herself in literature's stories of love found and lost, of fate and timing, of choices that echoed through a lifetime. And yet, every quiet moment betrayed her. She remembered how Ethan listened, really listened, how he never checked his phone, how he spoke about failure without embarrassment, how he didn't touch her like she was temporary. That frightened her, because men like that didn't belong to women like her, or so she believed. Meanwhile, hundreds of miles away, Ethan Cross was unraveling. He tried to return to his old rhythm. Meetings, negotiations, luxury dinners, but something inside him resisted. Every woman he met felt rehearsed. Every conversation felt shallow. For the first time, his wealth felt useless. So he did what he had never done before. He waited. He replayed the night in his mind, not the intimacy, but the conversations, her thoughts on loyalty, her belief that love should feel safe, not impressive, her quiet strength. Then he started asking questions, not publicly, not aggressively. He visited the library across from where they met, spoke to staff, asked about a young woman who loved books more than attention. Nothing. He walked the same streets, sat in the same cafe they had laughed in. Time passed, and doubt crept in. What if she never wanted to be found? What if that night was all it was meant to be? His advisors noticed the change. "You've turned down 3 engagement proposals this month," his assistant said carefully. "Is something wrong?" Ethan answered without thinking. "I met someone." That was all. No name, no details, just certainty. Weeks later, fate intervened quietly at a donor-funded education conference in New York. Ethan scanned the agenda absent-mindedly until one panel title caught his eye: Preserving Identity in an Age of Influence, presented by Elhart. His heart stopped. Elhart. He sat through the entire conference without hearing a word. When the panel finally began, she walked onto the stage, composed and calm, her hair tied back, her presence understated yet powerful. Lily. She spoke about integrity, about how success should never cost you your values, about walking away when something feels wrong, even if it feels right. Every word felt like it was meant for him. But when the applause ended, she was gone again. This time, Ethan didn't chase. He understood now. Some women don't want to be pursued. They want to be chosen with intention, patience, and respect. So instead of searching harder, he made a decision that shocked everyone around him. He cleared his schedule. No dates, no distractions, no substitutes. If he was going to find her again, it wouldn't be as a billionaire chasing a memory. It would be as a man ready to build a future slowly, honestly, and on her terms. And Lily, unaware of how close their paths were about to collide again, stood at the edge of a choice she could no longer avoid. Because some connections don't fade with distance, they wait. Some moments return not because you chase them, but because you are finally ready to face them. Lily didn't sleep that night after the conference. Standing on that stage, speaking about values and identity, she had felt strong until her eyes met his across the room. The recognition was instant. There was no confusion, no doubt. Ethan Cross, he hadn't changed, not really, still calm, still observant, but there was something different in the way he looked at her. Nahanga, not surprise, but respect, as if he was seeing her exactly as she was, not as a memory. She left quickly, afraid that if she stayed, her carefully built walls would collapse. But fate wasn't done. 2 days later, Lily received an email from the conference organizers. A private donor wanted to support her research initiative. Full funding, no conditions, no publicity. The only request was a meeting. She already knew who it was when she arrived at the quiet Midtown office. Her heart pounded, but her posture remained steady. She had promised herself long ago that she would never let emotions weaken her. Dignity. Ethan stood when she entered. No dramatic gestures, no forced smile, just honesty in his eyes. "I'm glad you came," he said. "So am I," she replied, surprising herself. They sat across from each other, silence stretching comfortably. No explanations rushed out, no apologies demanded. Finally, Lily spoke. "You didn't try to find me," she said. "I did," Ethan answered calmly. "Then I realized I'd be doing it for the wrong reason." She looked at him, curious. "I didn't want to trap you with money or pressure," he continued. "If we ever spoke again, I wanted it to be because you chose to be here." That was the moment Lily felt her defenses weaken. She had expected power. She had prepared for arrogance. Instead, she found restraint. They talked for hours about work, beliefs, childhoods. Ethan spoke of loneliness masked by success. Lily spoke of growing up invisible, learning to protect herself by disappearing. First thought, then came the truth she had never told anyone. I was saving myself for marriage, she said quietly. Not because of fear, because of choice. That night, it wasn't planned, and I didn't regret it. But I was afraid you would see me as just another experience. Ethan didn't interrupt, didn't justify. When she finished, he leaned forward slightly. I didn't lose sleep because of what happened, he said. I lost sleep because I didn't know your story. She searched his face for dishonesty and found none. Days turned into weeks. They met again slowly, intentionally. Coffee instead of cocktails, walks instead of parties, conversations instead of promises. The world around Ethan reacted sharply. His mother was concerned. His partners were confused. The media speculated wildly. You're risking your image, his advisor warned. She doesn't fit. Another said. Ethan responded with calm certainty. She's the only one who ever did. But love, when real, is never without tests. Lily received an offer to move abroad for a fellowship, 2 years, fully funded, starting in 3 months. A dream, a risk, a crossroads, she told Ethan without hesitation. I won't ask you to wait, she said, and I won't stay for you. He nodded. Good, he replied. I wouldn't respect you if you did. That night, alone, in his penthouse, Ethan faced a truth he could no longer ignore. Love wasn't about possession. It was about alignment, and alignment required sacrifice. The question was, whose? Because the next decision would define not just their relationship, but the kind of man Ethan Cross truly was. Distance doesn't destroy love. Silence does. When Lily left for her fellowship in Europe, there were no dramatic airport scenes, no promises carved into the air, just a long embrace and a shared understanding that what they were doing was bigger than comfort. I need to become who I'm meant to be, she said softly. And I need to prove I already am. Ethan replied, for the first time in his life, Ethan let someone walk away without trying to hold them back. The first months were easy. Late night calls, shared photos of quiet streets and old libraries, long messages about books, ideas, and dreams. But the world Ethan lived in didn't slow down just because his heart had. Business demanded presence. Investors demanded appearances. And the media, sensing a story, demanded explanations. Rumors began to spread. Billionaire back on the market. Mystery woman disappears, engagement off. Ethan Krause spotted with a socialite in Monaco. None of it was true, but truth rarely matters when headlines sell. Lily saw the articles. She didn't confront him. She didn't accuse him. She grew quiet, and Ethan, surrounded by noise, didn't notice the silence fast enough. Weeks passed with shorter calls, messages left unanswered. Time zones became excuses. Then temptation arrived, polished and persistent. A powerful CEO's debut of strategic and openly interested made her intentions clear during a business summit in Zurich. She represented everything Ethan was expected to want: status, alignment, convenience. Why chase someone who chose distance? She asked him bluntly. You could have certainty tomorrow. That night, Ethan stood alone on his hotel balcony, city lights below, phone in hand. Lily hadn't replied in 2 days. For the first time, Dow whispered loudly, but instead of reaching for comfort, he reached for clarity. He sent Lily a single message. I'm not asking you to stay. I'm asking you to trust me. Then if you can't, tell me now. Hours passed. Then her reply came. I'm afraid that if I choose you, I'll lose myself. And if you choose me, you'll resent what you give up. Ethan read it again and again. The next morning, he did something no one expected. He canceled his public appearances. He stepped away from a major merger, announced a temporary withdrawal from leadership. The media went into chaos. Billionaire steps down, personal crisis, power move or emotional collapse. Ethan didn't comment. Instead, he booked a flight. When Lily opened her apartment door in Prague, she froze. He stood there, not in a suit, not with flowers or speeches, just a man who had crossed an ocean to be present. Asterisk, I didn't come to convince you, he said. Asterisk, I came to decide who I am when no one is watching. Asterisk, they walked the city in silence, talked late into the night, spoke truths they had been avoiding. BAFTA, asterisk, I won't ask you to give up your future. Ethan said that asterisk, but I won't build mine without you. Lily's eyes filled not with fear, but clarity. For the first time she understood. Asterisk love wasn't asking her to shrink. It was asking her to stand still long enough to be seen. Asterisk still. There was one final test left, a choice that would demand courage from both of them, and it would come sooner than either of them expected. Some love stories end with a wedding. The greatest ones begin there. Lily stood alone on the Charles Bridge at sunrise, the city of Prague slowly waking behind her. The fellowship had offered her everything she once believed she needed: deep recognition, security, yet for the first time in her life, success felt incomplete without truth. She realized something profound. She was no longer afraid of losing herself. She was afraid of pretending she didn't already know who she was. Ethan waited nearby, not watching, not pressuring. He had learned that love isn't proven by words, but by restraint, by allowing space without absence. When Lily finally spoke, her voice was steady. I won't choose you over my future, she said. I'll choose a future that includes you. Ethan didn't respond immediately. His eyes softened, not with victory, but relief. And I won't ask you to fit into my world, he replied. I'll build one that fits us both. They didn't rush marriage. They didn't announce anything. They returned to the United States quietly, intentionally. Ethan restructured his empire, delegated power, simplified his life, shifted his focus from expansion to impact. He invested in education, research, and community projects, many of them aligned with Lily's work. For the first time, his success had direction. Lily completed her fellowship on her terms. She published work that gained respect not because of her association with Ethan, but because of her voice. When the media finally uncovered the truth, the reaction was fierce. She changed him. He gave up power. She trapped a billionaire. They ignored it all. Months later, in a small, private ceremony, no press, no spectacle, Ethan asked Lily to marry him, not with a diamond the size of ego, but with a promise spoken clearly and publicly. I waited because love should never be rushed. I searched because some souls are worth finding, and I chose you because without you, none of this matters. She said yes, not because he was a billionaire, but because he was a man who knew when to kneel without losing his strength. Their story didn't become legendary because of wealth. It became powerful because of choice, because a man learned that commitment is greater than control, because a woman proved that purity's not about the past, but about intention. Because both understood that real love doesn't demand sacrifice of self, it demands alignment of purpose. And for the millions who would hear their story later, the lesson was clear. You don't find the right person when you're successful. You become successful when you choose the right person.